I've moved out, so your house is gone. It must be tough without a place to call home. But hang in there, my mother-in-law cheerfully announced over the phone. I responded with a disinterested, Enjoy your life in your new home, she continued. Yes, thank you, and please never come back to my house. After all, you'll be getting a divorce. With that, my mother-in-law hung up. I stood still at the airport for a moment. What welled up within me wasn't anger, but joy. Yes! I clenched my fist in a small victory gesture and set off for home with a spring in my step. My name is Emma. My husband, David, was assigned to work abroad immediately after our marriage, forcing us into a short period of living apart. Despite the distance following our immediate marriage, David and I had been dating for 5 years before tying the knot and had also lived together. Our long-term relationship and cohabitation had built a strong bond of trust between us. I didn't worry about David being unfaithful, and instead, I hoped that he would remain healthy while overseas. Our days should have continued in this calm, yet sometimes lonely state. But the problem arose when my mother-in-law decided to move into our house. My mother-in-law, married since David was a child, is now single. Upon learning that David was being assigned overseas, she declared, I'll keep my eye on you, Emma, to make sure you don't cheat. She began living in our house without our consent. Apparently, she was cheated on and subsequently abandoned by my father-in-law, whose whereabouts are unknown. To prevent David from experiencing the same thing, she decided to monitor me, but the constant surveillance made life unbearable. Desperate, I turned to David for help. He repeatedly urged his mother to leave, but she refused to listen. David trusts you too much, Emma. I can tell. A woman like you will definitely cheat. She accused baselessly, giving me a headache every day. Regardless of what I did, she linked it to infidelity. My mother-in-law wouldn't even prepare dinner for me. She would cook for herself using food from the fridge, but never left any for me. Moreover, she didn't go grocery shopping herself. She used the ingredients that I had bought for my cooking, leaving me at a loss when I came home and found that the groceries I thought were in the fridge were gone. Of course, I complained about this, but my mother-in-law either didn't care or didn't listen. I suppose you ate dinner out with your boyfriend since you're cheating, she would say, irritating me beyond belief. Even when I came home late from work and started cooking, she would create a commotion, accusing, you must be cheating if you come home at this hour, leaving your mother-in-law alone. During my work's busy period, when I was often coming home late, she constantly made a fuss about me cheating. I was so stressed that I even felt sick. I'm begging you, please leave. I'm not cheating. I truly love David. I told her. David, too busy to come back to the U.S., tried his best to persuade his mother. Still, her response was disheartening. So you want me to leave that badly? You must be cheating after all. I could only sigh at this point. On a day off, I went out to meet a friend and was once again accused of cheating by my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law seemed determined to catch my infidelity and began a clumsy attempt to tail me from behind. She hid behind lampposts and behind our home's brick wall, busily skulking about. I chose to ignore her antics. I met up with a friend at a cafe, grumbling in a low voice so my mother-in-law wouldn't hear. Suddenly, a flash of light blinked a few times. It was her, taking pictures of me. My friend, looking suspicious, asked, "What's that, a stalker?" My friend Abby has been a close friend since our student days. Abby, a tough woman, began to stand up saying, "Should I tell her off?" But I quickly persuaded her to sit. No, please sit down. Abby, sporting a pixie cut in street-style fashion, looked androgynous. I mentioned that my mother-in-law might have mistaken her for a man, which caused Abby to double over in laughter. Enjoying the spectacle, Abby leaned closer to me, held my hand as a joke to provoke my mother-in-law. Each time, my mother-in-law flashed her camera, capturing every moment. When I checked in the mirror, she seemed thrilled, snapping photos of us while her nostrils flared with excitement. I found myself laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Having witnessed my mother-in-law's silly antics, I managed to let off some steam and went on to do a little shopping with Abby before we parted ways. Sure enough, my mother-in-law followed me home, hiding behind lampposts and brick walls just like before. Every so often, I'd quickly run around like playing a game of red light, green light, and she'd scamper off to hide. It was amusing, and I found myself playing along with her ridiculous game. I thought how foolish she must be to believe that I didn't notice her tailing me. Once I arrived home and started to take off my shoes, my mother-in-law quickly rushed in. If she was tailing me, she could have at least delayed her return home. I was taken aback when she excitedly showed me a disposable camera. "Emma, I finally got proof of your infidelity. I'm going to send all of these to David, so be prepared." "Oh, really? Good luck with that." She didn't like my nonchalant response and spent the rest of the time buzzing around me like a nagging child. "Are you okay with this? It's proof of infidelity. Your face and his are both clear in the photos." But I calmly kept responding, "That's fine." While it was unfortunate that Abby's androgynous look got her mistaken for a man, David had met Abby several times before we got married. Even if she sends a photo of me and Abby as proof of infidelity, David will likely recognize her as just a friend. As I endured my mother-in-law's ridiculous and childish schemes, I suddenly had to go on a business trip overseas. It was a shame that I wouldn't be able to meet David because it was in a different country, but it couldn't be helped. I informed my mother-in-law, who I live with, about my business trip, although I didn't ask for her input. In her mind, it seemed to translate into a romantic getaway. While I was preparing for my business trip, my mother-in-law smirked and said, "It'll be a big problem if you come back pregnant from your romantic getaway. David hasn't seen you in a while, so it won't be easy to pretend that the baby is his." Her distasteful imagination made it pointless to argue back. I responded nonchalantly, "Yes, indeed, but it's a business trip, not a romantic getaway," and I left for my trip. My business trip was busy and hectic, and the days flew by in a whirl. When I finally returned to the U.S., I was exhausted. My boss, who had also joined the trip, seemed worn out as well and left for home. I had planned to buy some duty-free sweets before going home, so I took a break on a bench. At that moment, my phone rang. It was a call from Abby, and she told me something surprising. Emma, welcome back. There's something I need to tell you. Your mom came to the company our family runs." "What?" The company run by Abby's family isn't the type that ordinary people visit. When I learned that my mother-in-law had gone there, I felt my blood boiling. Abby told me how she handled my mother-in-law and asked me if she went overboard. I replied, "No, I think it was just right." After laughing and ending the call with Abby, it was just about time to leave when I got another call from my mother-in-law. "Emma, you should be back from your trip now. Did you enjoy your affair trip?" It wasn't an affair trip, and I didn't particularly enjoy it because I went there for work. "Well, I've already sent David the evidence photos." I simply responded with, "I see," to my mother-in-law, who seemed pleased with herself. Ignoring my indifference, she just kept on talking. "Actually, I moved, so your house is no longer there. I sold the old house, so you must be struggling without a place to go back to, but hang in there." I gave an uninterested "huh" to my mother-in-law, who happily laughed as she said this. "Enjoy your life in your new house." "Thank you, and please never come back to our house. After all, you're going to be divorced soon." I stood in the airport for a while after my mother-in-law hung up. What gradually filled my heart was not anger, but joy. I did it! I made a little fist pump and started my journey home with a light step. Of course, I was returning to the house my mother-in-law said she had sold. The furniture was probably taken out by my mother-in-law. Although a lot of things were gone, I accepted it as a severance fee. I immediately called the locksmith to replace the front door lock so that my mother-in-law could not get in even if she returned. Then, I laid down in the living room, comfortably, celebrating the freedom I had finally attained. I made another fist pump inside the house, shouting, "I did it!" The next day, I got a call from my mother-in-law. "What's wrong?" I asked her maliciously, as she spoke in a flustered manner. She was trembling as she said, "Actually, I thought I sold the house, but it turns out I didn't. It seems I borrowed money without realizing it. Debt collectors are coming and it's really scary." That must be terrifying, because the company she unknowingly visited, thinking it was Abby's parents, was on the surface a real estate company. But its hidden side was a loan sharking business. According to Abby, they had told her repeatedly that the house couldn't be sold. The house was in David's name, so she couldn't just sell it on her own. Having been turned down by all the real estate agencies she went to, she ended up at the company Abby's parents ran. To her desperate plea to sell the house, they gave her a promissory note for a large amount of debt to sign. But she thought she was selling the house and signed it without reading the content. The document seemed to obligate her to repay $1,000 every day. She managed to pay off the debt collectors for today, but she doesn't have the means to prepare $1,000 every day from tomorrow on, so she came crying to me. "Please, Emma, you have to help me. The debt collectors are pounding at my door from dawn. It's terrifying. I can't sleep well, and I don't have much money. I used the money I borrowed to buy a new house, so I don't even have any savings left. I know what. Please, transfer $10,000 to my account every week until I've paid off the debt." Do you think there will ever come a day when you can pay off the company's debt? I don't think it will. Even if you combine my income with David's, it's impossible to transfer $10,000 every week. I'm sorry, but your only choice is to work hard and earn it yourself. What? As if there's a day job out there where I can earn $1,000 every day. Well, why don't you try talking to the company you borrowed money from? They might be able to introduce you to a good job. I meant it as a joke. But my confused mother-in-law said, "Really? Then I'll go and see." And she hung up the phone. I thought to myself, oh dear. There was no stopping my mother-in-law now. I heard from Abby later that my mother-in-law suddenly showed up at the company and said, "I have no choice but to work because I have no money. Is there a simple and easy job where I can earn more than $1,000 a day?" Abby and her team did find my mother-in-law a job, a company where many people sleep in dilapidated shacks that serve as employee dormitories. In that company, they work tirelessly day and night, doing quite a bit of physical labor. Even elderly people are made to work relentlessly. So my mother-in-law seems to be working herself to the bone. The dormitory for the workplace is inside a network lined with barbed wire, reminiscent of a prison, and the employees are blindfolded and transported to and from work in a van, so they are forced to work without even knowing where they are. She'll be free once she can pay off the debt. That is, if the day ever comes. Abby, who said this with a smile, is a dear friend of mine, but I hope she'll forgive me for feeling a little scared. Several weeks after my mother-in-law disappeared, David's overseas assignment ended and he returned home. When I told David what had happened, he only said, "There's nothing we can do about my mom. All we can do is wish her a long life from afar." It seems David never really liked his incomprehensible mother from when he was a child. He tolerated her because she was his mother, but it seemed that David had completely lost patience with his mother, who continued to suspect me, his wife, of infidelity. When I asked David if he had received the so-called evidence photos of my infidelity, he said, "Oh yeah," as if he had just remembered, and handed me a photo from his bag. "That's Abby, right? I have no idea why she would assume this was proof of infidelity. I actually had a huge fight with my mom over the phone. I told her I would cut ties if she kept suspecting you, Emma, but she just wouldn't listen, and it really annoyed me. But I thought this was a good picture, so I brought it home." True, my mother-in-law might have had a knack for photography. What a waste. The photo of Abby and me taken from behind by my mother-in-law, paired with the beautiful scenery, had a sense of style, as if it were a page from a photo album. It was kind of funny how Abby was playfully making a peace sign behind her back. It was just so Abby. We owe Abby a lot. We should pay her a proper visit sometime soon. Just make sure you don't sign any documents she might try to get you to sign. I'll never sign any document that Abby gives me. Chuckling together, David and I were finally able to live like a newlywed couple. We had no idea what happened to my mother-in-law afterwards, but she's probably still doing hard labor somewhere in the States. We felt like we could find out where she was if we asked Abby, but neither David or I had any desire to track down my mother-in-law. David and I continued to live happily together, and I gave birth to our first child. We are enjoying our blissful days.
You're such an unreliable sister. We need to go big for the Christmas party, so we have to make a lot. Order some more appetizers and steaks. That's my sister Chelsea, always bossing me around. I did as Chelsea asked, ordered takeout, and pack up everything. Then, to my overly excited sister and her husband, I said, "Well, I'm heading home now. My name is Taylor, a 32-year-old office worker. I've been married to Orland for a year now. We're really close, and our newlywed life has been truly blissful. But then, after father-in-law passed away due to illness, Orland asked me to move in with my mother-in-law Kyla at his family home. I was really anxious about living together, but Kyla was incredibly kind and quickly eased my worries. She taught me her special recipes and treated me so well. Life with just Orland was fun, but I've come to really enjoy our time as a family of 3. I feel blessed to have married into such a wonderful family and cherish these happy days. However, there's something that worries me. My own family. How's Mom feeling today? Oh, I'm doing really well today. I'm currently at a care facility where my mom lives. My dad passed away about 3 years ago, and since then, Mom had been living with my sister and her husband at our family home. But after Mom's legs got weak, they quickly moved her into this care facility. What's worse, I only heard about Mom's situation directly from her, not from my sister. Angry that Chelsea hadn't consulted me, I went to talk to her once. Chelsea just got defensive and lashed out irrationally. Your opinion doesn't matter, Taylor. We were the ones living with her after all. Still, you could have at least told me beforehand. Stop nagging. Why don't you take care of her then? I can't. I'm already living with Orland's mother. Then don't complain. Chelsea and I were never that close. She's always been crafty, tricking our parents with her eloquence to get what she wants since we were kids. At times, she even used me to beg our parents for things. I always looked at Chelsea with a cold gaze. Didn't she feel ashamed to go to such lengths to satisfy her desires? Seemingly aware of my cold gaze, Chelsea always snapped at me. So my sister and I used to fight a lot and argue frequently. Dad would always end up scolding both of us. Really? I thought having 2 daughters would make for a quiet and peaceful home. Turns out we're noisier than the neighbors with their 2 boys. I vividly remember Dad grumbling like that. After Chelsea left for college and started living alone, our home became peaceful. However, I feel like we still clash every time we met, especially during Christmas. As adults, Chelsea married before I did. I met her husband for the first time at a family introduction, and he seemed to have a similar personality and aura to Chelsea. Apparently, Chelsea hardly ever visited our parents' house after her marriage. I was already working and living on my own then, so I didn't know much. But I heard from Mom that Chelsea rarely showed her face. A few years later, Chelsea had a son. I met my nephew Stuart for the first time at a Christmas gathering. He was just born and very adorable. Then Dad passed away, and a year after that, I got married. I kept my distance from my sister and her family. We mostly met during Christmas, about once a year. So when I heard Mom was quickly moved to a facility after her legs got weak, My distrust towards my sister and her husband grew significantly. They had said they moved in with Mom to keep her company after Dad's passing. But then, they quickly cast her aside as soon as she needed care. Did Chelsea discuss with you, Mom, about moving you to the facility? No. It was more like she was forced. She said she couldn't do it because of her childcare responsibilities. Her husband agreed and started looking for a facility right away. That's terrible. Was the living situation before your legs got weak just as bad? Mom looked down a bit down when I asked. Yes, even when you scolded her. Chelsea always dumped all the housework on me. She even left Stuart scared to me. I was getting tired, so maybe moving to the facility was for the best. Mom. It saddened me to hear Mom had been through so much. After Dad died, Chelsea inherited a family home. I wondered if my sister and her husband had been waiting to take over the house, to live rent-free, and to get rid of Mom, the nuisance. It seemed like something Chelsea would do. She always prioritized herself first. I visited Mom regularly at the facility, but Chelsea hadn't shown her face even once. She probably didn't care much about our parents. In fact, Chelsea didn't seem too distraught even when Dad died. But when it came to the funeral and inheritance, she and her husband were very proactive. The heirs were Mom and us sisters, but Chelsea's husband kept butting in. Though Dad's estate wasn't much, just the family land and house, they repeatedly suggested that Mom and Chelsea should inherit it. I'll take care of Mom, so let's live together, Chelsea had said, convincing Mom. Mom asked me what I thought, and honestly, I didn't mind who inherited the house. If Chelsea was willing to take care of Mom, I was okay with her inheriting it. After I shared my thoughts, Mom agreed, and we decided to let Chelsea inherit the land and house. My sister and her husband, quite different from how they were during the funeral, efficiently prepared for the inheritance and completed the process quickly. Then they moved into our family home and started living together. It seemed more about acquiring the house than living with Mom, but I was glad Mom wouldn't have to live alone in her old age. However, living with my sister and her husband turned out to be a nightmare for Mom. When I visited home, like during Christmas, Mom would always express her dissatisfaction when we were alone. Apparently, Chelsea, though a homemaker, dumped all the household chores on Mom and even had her take care of her son. Mom had to take Stuart to and from daycare and play with him. I'm already 68 and getting weaker. Chelsea does nothing, leaving Stuart to me and going out during the day. Such a thing. I trusted Chelsea to take care of Mom, but at that time, I had just started living with Kyla, so I couldn't live with Mom myself. I thought I needed to talk to Chelsea and ask her at least to take care of her own son. Putting all the burden on Mom isn't right. But Chelsea irrationally lashed out. Huh? We're living together to help her out. Mom should do at least that much. You don't have kids, Taylor. You don't know how hard parenting is. A childless housewife shouldn't interfere. That's no way to talk. You said you'd take care of Mom, but it looks like she's the one taking care of you. Don't twist the conversation and attack me. Chelsea, red-faced with anger, yelled even more. Shut up! You're always so argumentative and annoying. If you don't like how I do things, stay out of it. With that, she forced me out of the house. I hadn't even come to see her in the first place. Since then, it's been hard for me to return home. So I kept in touch with Mom over the phone. One day, she told me she had moved into a care facility. I was furious that Chelsea hadn't consulted me, and we had another fight. Our relationship, already strained, was at its worst. I visited Mom regularly at the facility, but Chelsea never did. Thankfully, the care facility seemed to be of good quality, and Mom was living comfortably. Her pension was enough to cover the expenses. It was probably more peaceful and less burdensome for her than being saddled with household chores and childcare. So I continued my days, keeping an eye on Mom's condition. Then I unexpectedly received a call from Chelsea. I was on edge. It's rare for Chelsea to call. I had a bad feeling. Was she going to ask for something troublesome? Or had something happened to Mom? With tension, I answered the phone. Hello, what's up? Chelsea started talking in an annoyed tone.
I'm bringing Mom back to the family home for Christmas. So Taylor, help me with the caregiving.
Wait, what do you mean?
Mom wants to spend Christmas at home. My husband and I are too busy. So you help Mom, okay?
I was surprised by this sudden request.
All right then, thanks.
Wait, hang on! And just like that, the call ended. I thought about how self-centered Chelsea always is, but decided to check with Mom anyway. When I visited her at the facility, yes, Chelsea suggested it. I thought it would be nice to spend some time in that house again, Mom said. It sounded like Chelsea had made it seem like Mom wanted to return. But maybe she was just embarrassed to admit it was her idea. I felt happy, thinking Chelsea did care about Mom after all. So I decided to join in and take care of Mom. Orlan and Kyla smiled and told me to go. So I prepared to visit my family home for the first time in a while. And then Christmas came. I took Mom and headed to the family home. When we arrived, Chelsea greeted us.
Good to see you. Once you put down the luggage, could you help with some things?
Chelsea said as she let us in. Sure, what do you need help with? To my surprise, Chelsea demanded.
Could you start by cleaning all the rooms?
All of them? I exclaimed in shock. Chelsea with a cold gaze.
I told you we're busy, didn't I?
She retorted. Although I had my reservations, I decided to comply quietly, considering I had brought Mom here, and it was now my sister's house. As I started cleaning earnestly, Stuart began to interfere. He started messing up the areas I had just cleaned.
Could you please stop that? Why? I'm just playing.
It's troublesome if you mess up what I've just cleaned. Stuart continued to make a mess, unconcerned. The house was large, and cleaning was already challenging. Increasing the workload was the last thing I needed. So I spoke to him a bit more firmly.
Can't you understand when I say stop? If you don't behave, I'll get angry.
Then Stuart started crying loudly. Chelsea rushed over and yelled at me.
What are you doing making him cry? I can't believe this.
Well, he's messing up the place I just cleaned.
Kids makes messes, you know? That's what they do. This is why people without children just don't get it.
I was infuriated by Chelsea's condescending attitude. But then Mom, I'll take care of Stuart, she said, stepping in between us. But Mom, hit your legs. You shouldn't. It's fine. I have a secret trick to keep Stuart quiet. Mom took out some snacks and comics from her bag and handed them to Stuart, who happily started eating and reading. Chelsea warned me.
If you make him cry again, he'll have me to answer to.
And then she left. Relieved, I resumed cleaning and finally finished, exhausted. Next, Chelsea handed me a note with a list of groceries.
Go, buy everything on this list.
Excuse me?
Hurry up, before the relatives arrive.
What? I was taken aback. Wait a minute. Are relatives coming too?
Yes, they are. Is there a problem?
We've never done this before. I thought it was just going to be our family.
It's none of your business, Taylor. From now on, we're hosting lavish parties with relatives. It will boost our reputation.
Is it okay to have Mom around so many people? She's not strong, you know. It might be too much for her. Chelsea snapped at me.
Oh, stop it. I'm in charge of this house. Just do as you are told. I invited Mom to show the relatives how well I'm taking care of her.
What?
We lived with her, so it's only right we create an opportunity to be praised for it.
I was shocked. She invited Mom from the care facility just for that?
Can you just get moving? You're so slow, Taylor. Seriously, you're such a useless sister. We need to go big for the Christmas party, so make sure to buy plenty. Appetizers and steaks and get them from a department store or something.
Chelsea ordered me around and then left the room. I was speechless. She wasn't thinking of Mom at all. She just wanted to use Mom to get praise from others. When I went to find Chelsea, she was lounging on the living room sofa, watching TV. She was making me work while planning to take all the credit herself. I suddenly felt everything was ridiculous. Being used like this, neither Mom nor I would be happy. I'd probably just be worked to the bone during the party. When I quietly told Mom what Chelsea had said, she was shocked. I thought I'd get to relax. I haven't mingled with relatives in years, and it makes me uneasy. And Chelsea invited me just for this. Mom, let's go back home today. I'll call Orland. I immediately phoned Orland and asked if it was okay to bring Mom to our place. After explaining, Orland and Kyla agreed. Of course, come over, Kyla said. Let's go back now, Mom. I ordered appetizers and steaks as Chelsea instructed and pack up. I could hear my sister and her husband and Stuart chatting in the living room.
We're having a feast today. Lots of appetizers and steaks. Yay, awesome.
I can drink lots of beer too. Leaving everything to me and expecting to have fun is not how the world works. After packing, I put the bags in the car and helped Mom inside. Then I went back inside and headed to the living room. To my overly excited sister and her husband, I said, Well, I'm heading home now.
What? Wait, Taylor. What are you talking about? What about the cooking? The appetizers? You should do what you were asked to.
Chelsea berated me. Don't worry. I've ordered the appetizers and steaks as you asked. This made Chelsea a bit quieter.
But who will take care of Mom? I asked you to look after her.
Don't worry. Mom's already in the car.
Wait, what? That makes no sense. I need to show the relatives I'm taking care of Mom.
What's the point of lying? Even without Mom and me, you can still enjoy your lavish party, right? Chelsea's face turned red with anger.
Why are you speaking so formally all of a sudden, Taylor? Bring Mom back right now. I won't return her until after the party.
Faced with Chelsea's unreasonable anger, I firmly told her, Please, don't use Mom and me for your convenience. We're cutting ties with you. With that, I left the house and got into the car. My sister and her husband stood there, faces pale, watching me. We then headed to my in-laws' house. Orland and Kyla warmly welcomed Mom. I hope you don't mind eating what I've made. We have beef stew and appetizers. Despite her modesty, Kyla's cooking is quite delicious. Mom, visibly moved, said, Oh, this is delicious, as she enjoyed the appetizers. Mom and Kyla, being close in age, got along very well. I thought to myself that I should have brought Mom here from the start. I saw dozens of calls from Chelsea on my phone, but I didn't want to deal with her that day. So I turned off my mobile and enjoyed the party with the four of us. Then, after the New Year, my sister and her husband suddenly showed up at my in-laws' place.
Taylor, what have you done? Why didn't you pay for the appetizers and steaks?
They were angry about the bill for the food I had ordered.
Because of you, Taylor, we had to pay a bill of $2,000. Pay us back right now.
They demanded unreasonably. I calmly responded, I only ordered because you asked me to. Since I didn't attend, I don't owe you anything, right?
Shut up. We don't want to suffer this loss. You're my sister, so you should listen to me.
Chelsea was unreasonable again. Then Mom spoke up.
Enough, Chelsea. You're hopeless. Taylor worked hard cleaning the house, even though you two weren't getting along. Yet you never thank her and tried to get praise without doing anything. You should be ashamed. Even before I went to the facility, you persuaded me to let you inherit the house, promising to take care of me. But then you did nothing and dumped all the chores and childcare on me. Despite that, you're my child, and I've always loved you unconditionally. But when I hurt my legs, you quickly put me in a facility. You haven't even visited me once in almost a year. Taylor and I are done with you. We've told all the relatives and neighbors about your behavior. What? The relatives said they won't go to your place anymore. And you know how the neighbors love to gossip. Some of your old classmates live in the area too. I'm sure they know all about this soon. That's unbelievable.
Don't think everything will always go your way. People who mistreat others end up being treated the same way. Maybe it's time for you to reflect on yourself, Chelsea. But we won't have anything to do with you anymore. My sister and her husband were ashen-faced. Orland then delivered the final blow.
Can you leave now? If you come back uninvited, we won't hesitate to call the police.
Hearing police, they hurriedly left. The gossip of police involvement would make it impossible for them to live in that house anymore. The neighbors reportedly avoid them now. Chelsea has become reclusive, but I feel no sympathy. It's her own doing. Meanwhile, I live happily with Orland and Kyla, regularly visiting Mom at the facility. She has made many friends there and says she is happier than when she was at home. I'm committed to cherishing my family and living each day with them.